Hey! Hey there! Today I'm going to show you my updated Ines build. Ines is one of my favorite descendants of all time, and nothing actually changed to Ines directly. No buffs, no nerfs, and no formula changes. However, there has been a few new weapons, weapon buffs, new modules, new trigger modules, and especially the Ancestor module which indirectly changed Ines's playstyle and build. Another factor is that the mobs are getting more resistant to abilities. This video will explain to you how you can improve Ines's mobbing capabilities correctly and optimally. My last Ines video was many months ago and I thought that it may be time to upload a new video. I will no longer be going deep into all her abilities and transcended modules, and I will be focusing more into her passive ability. Plasma Oscillation is Ines's bread and butter. Not only that this ability gives her a flat critical hit rate, this ability is also responsible for the reason why Ines is such a very good, very efficient mobber. The passive ability's critical hit rate calculation is very straightforward as shown here. The maximum mana applied will only be 600 mana for a maximum of 39% bonus to your flat critical hit rate. This means that this crit rate is added to your base crit rate before any modifiers. This allows you to get 100% critical hit rate easily. One misconception for this is that you will not be able to see the current crit rate if you're in Albion. You have to be outside Albion or in the laboratory. The dark currented formula is very complicated, even Vash was not able to figure it out. It essentially functions as a bonus damage with an immeasurable amount of damage and damage instances, due to its numerous trigger conditions and nuances. Going max MP is hitting 3 birds with 1 stone, where it increases your crit rate and thus increases your dark currented damage, while the MP itself also increases its damage. The cap is only 800 MP, however I have yet to confirm if the game respects what the description says. Additional information will be written in the pinned comments. The damage of this ability is inconsistent because it has a minimum damage and a maximum damage. However, you'll almost always guaranteed to deal the maximum damage thanks to your 4th ability, which gives you the short circuit buff. This is why we still need a cooldown on our build to sustain this buff, which also sustains our damage. Ines's 1st and 2nd ability are good quality of life abilities for building your custom resource, as well as triggering dark currented. Her 2nd ability especially is a very good tool because this deals high amounts of damage with a massive hit scan range, perfect for dealing with outliers, so you have to keep casting it whenever it is off cooldown. Her 4th ability is the best tool to apply Conductor and trigger the Dark Currented because of its massive area of effect and its short damage tick rates. This also deals a good amount of damage, which helps against weaker enemies. Like I said, Ines is stronger when you build into her passive ability. This deals a substantial amount of damage, which scales with mob density. Another reason is that the more difficult content has more skill resistances, and Dark Currented isn't affected with that. It also is not affected by shreds. This is because Dark Current's damage is entirely based off of your mana, crit damage, and crit rate, skill power ratio, skill power modifier, faction damage bonus, and even your reactor element does not affect its damage. While your skill power damage drastically suffer against high resistance enemies, your Dark Current damage remains constant throughout content except when you're against enemies that reduces damage taken. More explanation in this video here. This explains why building into Dark Currented works better than skill power against high difficult content aside from the damage instances. Building into skill power is still viable and works well in weaker contents and against elites and bosses. However, we already have a tool that deals with tougher enemies extremely well. This is the build. The first build is without the Ancestor module. Cooldown is still very important, which is why we are still going to be using both focus modules. You can replace Enlightenment with HP conversion for MP for more damage but lesser survivability, or Stim Accelerant for lower damage but higher survivability. It all depends on how much you struggle and how good your player skill is. Using Tactical Strike allows us to reap the benefit of using Tactical Advantage, which increases our overall damage for both skill power and Dark Current's damage, while also increasing our duration. The buff activates whenever we inflict tactical target using our 4th ability. If you want to build into your Dark Current damage a bit more, you can also use Arche Concretion and replace Tactical Strike with Power Beyond. Arche Concretion is quite a tricky module to use, so use it at your own discretion. You don't have to worry about the reduction to attribute damage because again, Dark Current damage does not get affected by skill power. This module gives you 39% max MP at 30 stacks, which can be stacked easily since you're already spamming your abilities. Just remember that using your grappling hook or rolling will reset the stacks. Bravery set is honestly the best possible set you can use for Ines, especially if you're building more into Dark Current's damage, and also especially when you're using Arche Concretion. I've said this many months ago, and I actually think that I was the first one who showed it in this video here. The main weapon that we'll be using is the Shadow Sword. This weapon allows us to deal with elites and bosses a bit better, especially if we built Ines into Dark Currented. E-Buster does replace Secret Garden as the new static weapon if you want more skill power damage. Builds for both weapons at the end. The Inversion and Arche tuning can go in two different directions. This is the safer option which provides a good balance to your skill power and Dark Current damage. You can remove the red highlighted nodes to take the green highlighted node if you feel like you need more cooldown reduction. Option 2 allows us to deal more damage to your Dark Currented damage, but is also quite tricky to use. Essentially, you have to dodge enemy attacks and keep your shield up to 50% or more. This option may not be as viable if you're struggling with survivability, but using this option will net you a hefty amount of damage to your Dark Current while also decently increasing your skill power damage. The second build is with the Ancestor module and we're building more into our Dark Current damage. So the ideal Ancestor module would be a 3 positive and 1 harmless negative with skill cooldown reduction enough to replace both our focus modules. The other two options would be max MP and critical damage. You can adjust to which Ancestor module you have. Refer to these calculations for the higher damage output builds depending on your Ancestor module. If you don't have cooldown reduction to your Ancestor module, you can keep the focus modules and replace Tactical Advantage or Enlightenment. Or you can adjust yet again if you're struggling with survivability by replacing Tactical Advantage with Stim Accelerant and Tactical Strike with Power Beyond. You can play and adjust a lot of things based on your playstyle and comfort. In my case, I like to run this build with both Tactical Advantage and Arche Concretion. This allows me to have the maximum mana needed for the maximum damage output for Dark Currented at just 23 stacks of Arche Concretion, assuming that my Ancestor module has a God roll to max MP. So you have 7 stacks of leeway in case you have lower mana roll. In case you are still struggling with survivability, you can replace HP conversion with Enlightenment and still receive the max MP of 800 at 27 stacks. And if you're still struggling with survivability, you can remove HP conversion for Stim Accelerant. Again, play with the build as you see fit depending on your playstyle and needs. For the Arche tuning and Inversion, it's the same as the first build. Refer to the timestamps. The third build revolves around skill power damage rather than Dark Current damage. Cycling between Dark Current damage and skill power damage depends on the content. For example, skill power build is way better against Supermassive dungeon, and you can test this yourselves. Skill power build is also better against weaker content because of how much damage your second ability deals, instantly killing elites rather than charging up your Shadow Sword, which takes time. Another thing is that against weaker content, Dark Current doesn't need to deal high damage because the mobs have lower effective hit points, thus wasting potential additional damage that may be useful in clearing elites, devices, and even bosses. You can compare using Dark Current build or skill power build in Sigma Sector, Supermassive Receptor Dungeon, 400% Dungeon, and you will notice the difference and smoothness. For the Arche tuning, use this as this will help you with your skill power capabilities. For E-Buster, you don't really need to build this weapon because it's only a stat stick. You can build it if you want to, but I personally don't need to since the weapon damage isn't that good. For Shadow, it's the same build as I've had before, but Veil Analyzer can be replaced for quality of life modules if you want, or Toxic Conductor for enemies that don't have Arche shields. Again, both Dark Currented build and skill power builds are viable builds for all content. There are some that favor Dark Current build more like the Axe Converter mission, Breach Tracking, and essentially high resist enemies and dense content with fewer elites. And some will favor skill power builds like Supermassive Receptor Dungeon, Sigma Sector, low dense high number elite dungeons, and weaker dungeons. Use the build that fits your playstyle. Ines is going to be getting 2 new Transcendent modules soon, and I would deduce that she's going to receive minor adjustments to her abilities or stats, maybe even a slight rework. Until then, this video will serve as the updated build specifically for mobbing. Her bossing isn't as efficient anymore but can still handle hard mode Colossus. That's it for the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Descendant, confirm arrival at the operation center. Going to hurt. There's no getting away. This is awesome.
exterminate.
objective that would